Delta Property Fund has withdrawn its bid and sold its entire holding of Ascension Properties to Rebosis Property Fund. Sandile Nomvete, Chief Executive of Delta Property, joins us now for more. Sandile, a warm welcome. You need no introductions to Ashraf from my understanding. But nonetheless, the withdrawal from the holdings in Ascension, does this prove to show that two's company and three's a crowd?
Gugu, thank you very much. Actually, I'd like to put it slightly differently in the sense that it's a resolution to a long-running issue, which obviously has created uncertainty in the market, particularly with the three stocks. Ultimately, we think we've made the right decision for unit holders. I think you will have seen, based on the announcement made today, that Delta will be receiving 349 million rands worth of cash, which we are very, very confident that we can basically place that to reduce our gearing and look at other opportunities like our Delta International story that we basically are bringing to market as well.
Now, Mark's done a lot of research on this company, no doubt. One of interest to you, Mark?
Yes, indeed. I think this is one of the companies with a terrific portfolio worth 7 billion or so. In fact, we were talking earlier that the listed property sector, REITs and so forth, have become a significant asset class in their own right. And I guess the question would be, Sandile, is that with perhaps scale advantages being necessary in the future, this is one step along the way that possibly you couldn't get that merger of equals you were talking about, but it doesn't change the fact that possibly in time you'd like to do a merger and possibly just get that size up a bit.
Yeah, Mark, I think you touched on some very important points. One of the things that we have done, we haven't just been busy with the merger. I think we've done a considerable amount of work since year end in terms of negotiating better funding rates for Delta. With scale obviously comes benefit, and that was always part of the attraction of creating a bigger fund. Obviously liquidity, but at the end of the day, the type of investor that invest in a sovereign fund like Delta is a long-term investor. They're looking for distribution growth. And those are the fundamentals that we as a management team have been focusing on of late. And I think in the next couple of days we'll be providing further guidance to the market post this announcement in terms of what is the future for Delta, both here in South Africa and then on the rest of the continent.
Okay, Sandile, question.
Gloves off now, huh?
No, there's no gloves off here. I'm going to ask a Delta specific question. I won't touch on the other issues. Delta International, Delta Local, where is the focus going to be, or how are you going to split the team up? Because it's currently, the market knows it's you and Bronwyn running that business. Are you going to be distracted, or will it be her? How's it going to work?
Yeah, Ashraf, again, I think you've clearly done your homework, and I think he's got inside information here. But what we have done, Ashraf, is, Delta South Africa, as we like to call it, is a sovereign play. We have consistently said that 70% of our income will come from sovereign income, 30% will be other. It's just prudent investment strategy. So Delta South Africa has basically will be taking up a 25% equity participation in Delta International, as we name it. We have recruited what we believe is a very highly skilled Pan-African team, currently led by Paul Simpson, ex-Woolworths, head of properties at Woolworths. The CFO comes out of the Delta South Africa. He has been with us since prior to listing. The Chief Operating Officer is Greg Pearson, who comes out of ACOM, a company which provides services in the property sector across the continent, and they've been involved with numerous particular countries. So internally, whilst Bronwyn and I have probably dominated the public space, we are very clear in terms of what the investment mandate of Delta International is and what the investment mandate for Delta South Africa is. The separation is that Delta International will purely invest outside of South Africa. We have got extremely attractive assets in Casablanca, Morocco, which is our jewel in the portfolio, and for Mall, 30,000 square meters, You know, what we found in Morocco is a country that is very much pro-FDI. We were very warmly welcomed by, as an investor in the country. The penetration from a retail perspective is significantly lower than what we've seen in South Africa. I think the stats are such that, you know, I think there's 3 or 4 large shopping centers in Morocco, of which this is the second largest. So obviously this gives us a first mover advantage in terms of being an outright Pan-African property fund. And I have no doubt that the team at Delta International will obviously show the market of what they're capable of. And the Delta South Africa board has obviously stamped their authority by taking a significant stake in this fund by being an anchor investor. Added to that, as management, we've put in our own 150 million rand equity participation because we've seen the assets. You know, we've got, you know, if you look at some of the assets in Mozambique, we've got the Vodacom regional head office on a 10-year plus 10-year lease. We've got Anandako head office, which is a large multinational oil and gas company with all the exploration and discoveries that are going on in Mozambique. So I think we're on a good footing. I think the South African investor needs to understand that, you know, this is not a knee-jerk reaction. We, even prior to listing, have got a four-phased strategy, which this is only phase 2. So I think we are confident that, you know, if the market gives us the benefit of the doubt, I think we will actually deliver similar to other funds that have gone offshore.
Absolutely.
Sandile, can I interrupt you there? Because what you're saying is very interesting and very relevant for your shareholders and your unit holders. But on the other hand, it's a very noisy space. For someone like myself who doesn't particularly understand fully the JSE listed property sector, what I've found is, apart from the fact there's a lot of acquisitions, a lot of disposals, a lot of acquisitions, it seems to me the case is that a lot of companies are saying, I'm getting rid of these 27 properties because they are low grade or too small for our portfolio. We're going to concentrate on the high grade and better quality so-called properties. And Ashraf will probably back me up on this one. Do you think this is healthy for the JSE? And do you think there are 2 sectors of the JSE property index now that are emerging, i.e. the ones that are more nimble and can get more out of the, or rather sweat the assets that are so-called lower quality, and the ones that are going for the high quality ones? Is that a fair point?
I think, Lindsay, to a degree, I think you're right. But I think it's also, you know, people will play to their own gallery in terms of, you know, particularly in terms of the particular asset location. If you look at the sovereign underpin assets as an example, you know, there's 3 funds that play there. Currently, there's Ascension, Rebosis, and ourselves. So people will play where they are obviously strong. And then you've got, of late, you know, a couple of funds which are obviously looking cross-border in terms of hard currency returns, as the market in South Africa, either from their perception is reaching, you know, saturation, or obviously looking for better returns. So, you know, I think it depends on the skill set on the funds, Lindsay, in terms of where each particular fund is sitting from a competitive nature perspective. If you look at most of the PE funds that have listed, which play in the sovereign space, they've ordinarily bought those properties from some of the larger funds, which have moved on to super regionals and other properties. Now, where I differ with the market is the premium that, you know, or the discount that is basically allocated to sovereign because of perception. And I'm a big believer in sovereign underpin. I think we've proven since listing that, you know, the government is, the Department of Public Works is getting their house in order. You know, we've never written, touch wood, any bad debts since we've listed, and we've met all our distribution targets to date, and we continue to see growth.
Sandile, if I may interject there, you mentioned that you're quite bullish on the African story, and going forward they haven't written off any bad debts just yet, but aren't you concerned about security worries there? We saw the Westgate attacks in Kenya, today bombing attacks in Abuja, very close to an upscale retail center. Is that not something that keeps you awake at night?
Look, I think it does. In fact, probably even more than the terror attacks, and which are unfortunate for the continent, because I think we are coming off a low base. But even structurally, tax-wise, getting tax treaties and understanding how the flow of funds is basically interlinked is quite a complicated structure. We believe that gives us a competitive advantage. We are on the ground. I mean, if I take a case in point in Morocco, we've got a French-speaking asset manager who will be relocating to Casablanca with his family to look after the asset with the property managers on the ground. We've got Portuguese-speaking directors, hence Mozambique. So these are well thought through strategies. We wouldn't get involved in in areas which we have not done our homework. So there's quite a long lead up time in our view before to pull in the trigger in terms of those particular areas.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today. Definitely good seeing you, maybe for Ashraf as well. But that was Sandile Nomvete, the Chief Executive of Delta Properties.